Greetings YouTube, it's Matty-O, and you asked for it. I've got the Harbor Freight Woodchipper here with the Predator, I don't know, 6.5 horse motor, whatever it is. And a lot of the feedback I've got from some of the videos I've posted using this piece of equipment is how do you sharpen the blades. So that is what I'm going to be tackling today. Now, I have not sharpened the blades on this piece of equipment yet. I don't really know what I'm doing. My plan of attack is going to be removing the branch chute, removing the brush hopper, and hopefully exposing the flywheel with the cutting components on there. So I'm going to kind of assess the situation and take you along on that journey with me today. So a little backstory on this piece of equipment. I've owned this machine now for just over a year. I consider myself a weekend warrior in terms of using this machine. On average, I would say I've been using it maybe once every 3 months. So that being said, when I go to use this, typically I amass a large amount of yard debris. That's when I'll wheel this thing out, gas it up, and send branches through. It has been generally problem-free. I know I've mentioned it in other videos. So far, the only issue I've had with it is the little bag clip string retainer. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know I've just been using a small little hand clamp to get around that. Someone suggested purchasing those. They are replaceable, so that's something I may look into. Other than that, it's been very good to me. I haven't had any mechanical issues. I know Harbor Freight stuff seems to be a roll of the dice for a lot of people, and I know my personal experience, I have had generally good luck with their tools, especially the power equipment. I really haven't had any catastrophic failures or anything like that. And I would even go as far as saying that over the years, the quality has improved just across their product line. I know there was a comment saying I should work for Harbor Freight or whatever, and yeah, cool. But, you know, I make these videos and I wanted to showcase this product because A, I didn't know if it was going to hold up for a year, and B, a store like Harbor Freight lets people like me who don't have a lot of money, I don't come from wealth, I don't have a lot of disposable income. However, I am very hands-on with all aspects of taking care of my property and my vehicles, and a place like Harbor Freight enables me to do these sorts of jobs and tasks that I would not be able to afford or do without the tools they offer at the price point they do. So if you've got a bigger budget and Harbor Freight is to thumb and nose for your tastes, more power to you, bro. Nice. But for the penny pinchers like me, I'm not going to go out and finance a tractor. I'm not going to go out and get into debt for something that costs 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times what this machine costs. Harbor Freight hits the marks for me in terms of keeping the money in my wallet where it belongs. All right, end of rant. It's been a year of using this machine. Here again, when I do wheel this thing out and use it, I put it through its paces. I expect it to shred whatever fits. And I will say that just short of 100%, this thing meets that mark. It really doesn't let me down, and it does a pretty good job of making sure that whatever can actually physically fit in the machine comes out as wood chips. The last time I used that, and if you haven't checked this video out, I made a video called Shred Fest, and it was 5 days of me shredding a huge pile. We're talking like a small dump truck size pile of brush and sticks and branches. And I really gave this machine a workout in that 5-day span. And during the course of that back-to-back 5-day extravaganza, I noticed that the rate of feed at which the machine would take brush had noticeably slowed down from the beginning of Shredfest to the end of Shredfest. So I think at this point in time, it is prudent and wise to go ahead and do some routine maintenance. Let's be clear, sharpening your blades is going to be maintenance of this machine, and I think it's something I can plan to do every year, probably along with an oil change. So that is the journey on which I'm to embark upon today. So on my particular model, I've got a 13mm socket that I'm going to use to remove these 3 nuts. These hold on the branch chute, and I've got a pretty sizable extension there, if I do say so myself, and that will enable me to get in, hopefully, and zip these off. Now, you don't have to use power tools like I'm doing, but it's Sunday and I'm trying to relax at some point today, so I'm going to let the tools do the work. I'm also noticing that my motor mounts, the little rubber grommets, are actually splitting, so that is something I'll probably need to look into within the next year. Nothing of immediate concern, I would say. All right, and don't lose your washers either. So at this point, I'm going to spin the engine over very carefully. My ignition is off, my fuel is off, so the engine should not, under any circumstance, spin up. All right. Now, if you look carefully, you'll see this rectangular bar in here. It looks like we've got two 5mm hex or Allen countersunk fasteners holding this blade on. And this block here again is your blade. So I'm going to make a mark on this. So this is one. Okay, I'll spin it over. Oh, I lost it. Be very careful. When you're spinning the engine over, that compression can get away from you and pinch your finger. Not fun. All right, there's two. So one, two. So we've got two blades total, and these do all of the branch chute cutting. If you are having issues, particularly with this side of the machine, these are going to need to be sharpened. Now they're actually pretty hefty looking, so I think we would be able to sharpen these a few times before a replacement would even need to be considered. So we've located the blades for the branch cutter. I have flipped the machine around to the back because at this time I need to take off the brush chute. I also had a peek at the manual for this piece of equipment, and I did confirm those two hex bolts that hold the blade on are secured by nuts. So I've got to access the back of that flywheel. That means I'm going to have to disassemble this large back cover from the rest of the machine. I think what I'm going to do, I'll get a floor jack to kind of support the engine side of this machine, and then I'll take the opportunity to remove the nuts and bolts that go around the circumference of this outer case. That should expose our flywheel and give us complete, uninhibited access to what we need to deal with today. I think you could cut to the chase in this particular situation and remove this outer cover without removing the brush hopper separately, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of hopefully make my life easier and do it this way. Again, these are 13mm, and you have a nut and washer combination. We've got all the hardware off, so this brush hopper literally just separates like that. I'm going to spin the engine over real fast and take a look. It looks like I could possibly access the nuts for the blades, which I might just try to do. It would definitely save some work than separating this whole housing off the machine. I'm also noticing a little bit of the powder coat finish on my flywheel coming off, so this might be a good time to inspect the flywheel itself and maybe touch up any areas that you see rust starting to develop. The star of this particular scene is our hammers for cutting brush in our brush hopper. This is a little more obvious than the blades, I would say. We've got 4 of these semi-free spinning hammers. They're mounted on this X pattern kind of assembly. It looks like there's 2 styles. You've got this one that has an angle on it, and you've got the flat one. But if you look carefully at either blade, they've got a point that kind of resembles like a lawnmower style blade. And I would say this is going to be similar to sharpening a lawnmower blade. I'm going to use a bench grinder. I want to pull these off and kind of take my time to put a nice fresh edge on them. Here again, they're pretty thick for what they are, and I guess that's to be expected given their intended use. I think my plan of attack is going to be to try to take these off individually and sharpen them. So these are 6mm. I might try to zip them off here, see if we get any success. Not happening, huh? So I'm gonna put a pry bar in here and see if I can't break one of these loose. So if you haven't noticed, I fired up the air compressor. I'm going to try to rattle these loose with my air gun. And that was the key to success. You got your nut, which has this collar on it. You got your blade, which rides on that collar. And then you've got a washer, which gives it a little bit of space once it's installed. So that is the assembly for these blades. I'm going to try to keep everything together so I don't lose anything. I'll do the same thing. And using air tools like this, I don't need to worry about holding the flywheel stationary. I'm also trying to bump the gun a little bit because I don't want these to spin out or get stripped. It helps break them loose without damaging anything. Same thing, got my pieces. I'm noticing I've got a little bit of debris in these bolt holes, so it might behoove you to get a little pick or maybe a small flathead screwdriver and just clean them out. That's going to help your hex driver get in there and seat properly and avoid the potential for damage to the fastener. Okay. So as you can see, I spun that one out. That is not ideal. All right. If you're not careful, it's easy to drop a washer down into this pocket. I keep a magnet on a stick close by so that I can fish out anything that falls away from me. So this was pretty smooth with the exception of this fastener here. Sadly, it had some crap gooed up inside of it, and my efforts to spin it out with the impact gun resulted in damaging the fastener. I'm going to try to free it up with some vice grips. I'm going to take a pry bar and lodge it into the hole. Hopefully I can spin this thing off, and it looks like it's going to play nicely. I got a little bit lucky there, I think. With a screw like this, a trip to the hardware store, you'd probably get something a little stronger, a little more durable than what came from the factory. Vice grips are the theme to my weekend. My 7.3 Power Stroke decided to have a fuel leak on the highway on a trip to Florida. I was not able to get the part where I was, so I had to use some vice grips to crimp the fuel line shut and limp home on 4 cylinders. I disabled that bank of cylinders, unplugged the injector harness, and drove my 3.6 liter 7.3 home. 3.65, something like that, whatever. I've got all 4 of my brush blades off, so I'm going to put them aside for sharpening, and now I'm going to focus on getting those nuts off for the front blades. So I've got a small 3/8 Brager bar. I've got 13 millimeter, but I don't think I'm going to be able to actually access those nuts. So I'm going to bite the bullet, and just to give me full maintenance access to the flywheel, I'm going to actually pull this cover off. Tried to avoid it, but here we are. We had to do it anyway. So I've got the engine side of this supported under a floor jack. The flywheel is so heavy that the piece of equipment still wants to tip forward. So I'm going to try to carefully remove this cover out of the way. It's attached to the wheels, and then we'll see where we are actually at with things. I'm going to go ahead and start with the discharge chute. I just need to remove the outer nut that's on the back here. And those do get hot. Whew. I'm just going to go around and do the same thing. 13 millimeter nut, washer, bolt. Use my extension. through the tire. Looks like we got 2 on the bottom. It is hot out, man. So you don't have to worry about these 3. These just hold the wheels on. Looks like I've got 2 more. And last one. And be careful. It's gonna want to detach. And I could see the weight shift towards the jack, so I guess that's good news. Carefully avoid getting pinched. What's the tip? So yeah, there's definitely a bias towards this flywheel on this machine. Be ready for an uneven load there. All right, get this moved. So at this point, the flywheel and all of the hardware for the blades is exposed. I'm fairly certain I'm going to be able to get to what I need to in here. You can kind of see the powder coat finish is flaking off in spots. I've got a little bit of surface rust. There's nothing too concerning in here, but I'm going to reiterate that this is a great time to maybe hit this with a wire brush and just paint it, especially when you've got this hardware off and out of the way. I'm going to just try to zip these off. So I want to make sure I'm holding the engine just so it doesn't fall apart or walk away. So I'm zipping them loose, but I'm getting to the point where I can tell the bolt is spinning. So I'm going to try to hold the other side. And here again, that was the 5mm hex. I do have evidence of plant debris in there blocking and limiting access to those holes. So it would be advisable for you to clear out any sort of debris just so you don't damage these fasteners. Continue this. Easy. So these have a lock washer and a nut, and then the actual bolt itself. I'm going to leave that in place for the moment. So once you got them both off the blade, you can see it's this block of iron. Nice wedge, and actually it's fairly sharp. I'm actually surprised it's not a little more dull. This component doesn't really look like it needs a whole lot of sharpening, but we'll give it a little touch up. My lock washer actually did kind of mush them out. Just try to squeeze that back into shape. I've got plenty of these on hand too if further damage occurs or I can't really get this back, but there we go. I think that'll work. I'm trying to keep all my hardware together for easy reassembly. And I'll carefully spin the motor over by hand. Remember, if you've got it on a jack, it's going to be unwieldy. All right. And again, clear out my bolt holes. There is definitely some caked on sawdust in there. And we will kind of wrap it off. There we go. 2. Groovy. It's a great idea to wear gloves. There's actually a sharp bit of metal sticking out, and I just stabbed my fingertip. There are our 2 blades. We'll go put those on the grinder and make them new again. So it's probably easier to start with these main blades. They're a little bit thicker. Basically, when I'm going to sharpen these, and I'm going to encourage my viewers out there, if you haven't sharpened a blade before, like a lawnmower blade or something, on a bench grinder, it would probably be a great idea to go check out another video dedicated specifically to that purpose. This is not my strongest skill. I've done it a few times, and I'm sure I'll be able to touch these blades up. And the idea is basically, once this thing gets spinning and we're plugged in, once we get our wheel spinning, we're going to just focus on putting a nice clean edge, and I'm going to be putting the grinding surface right onto this angled cutting surface and kind of trying to do even passes to refine this edge. And that's going to be across the board. Our 2 primary blades and then our smaller brush blades. These angled ones look like they're going to be a little more challenging because we're going to have to follow the contour of the bend in the blade. So I'm going to save these for last when I'm feeling all warmed up. It's a good idea. Eye protection, gloves, got my safety sunglasses on. And I'm not even kidding, they're safety rated sunglasses. So Goliath, baby. You can kind of take a look at it and you'll see I'm focusing on that edge. I'm letting the grinder do the work. Check your work. We're taking out the little dents and dings, so I think we're good. And same thing for the other one. Trying to find that ideal angle. Good. The flat ones, same exact thing. Now keep in mind the blade kind of starts in. Now I was not doing a good job there because I was sharpening the back, not the leading edge. So I got to put some more angle on this. That's a little better. I've got a little flat spot on the outer side, so I'm going to work on that. Not my best work, but I think it'll be okay. I'm going to do the other flat one. Dinged up. I think they kind of flail around and do God knows what. I'm going to try to clean up the bottom. Mine's a little bent. Well, I'm not going to focus my efforts on that side. Right? So I got to focus on following this curve now. Ineffective. Let me try that again. That's a little better. It's actually pretty sharp now. So I had to really kind of dig in because my first pass, even though I came at an angle, it was not enough to get that leading edge. So just pay attention to that. You should be all right. Side up. But really going to focus on this side now. Do another pass, I think. Not my best work once again, but I think that's going to be an improvement. So I did hit it with some spray paint, my flywheel. just while we're in here. Seemed like the right thing to do. So now I'm ready to reassemble things. If you're confused at how this all goes back together, this countersunk recessed pocket is where your screw lives, and that's going to face the back towards the engine of the machine, like that. And carefully get things into position. Like that. And I will not be using air tools to tighten anything up. I don't believe that will be necessary. I'm going to use my little impact driver just to snug things up. Alright. You'll want to make sure that the blade is facing the direction the flywheel spins when you pull the engine. I'm going to make sure my blade business end is going with the rotation of the machine. And I'm noticing the blade, I think I did a pretty good job sharpening it because I can feel the edge on it as I reinstall, so just be careful. Gloves, all that safety gear is your friend. All right, so our blades are on. We theoretically could put the cover back on at this point, but I'm going to go ahead and get our brush blades on. We've got our main blades on. It's time to get the brush blades back on. You will notice that the flange that holds the 4 brush blades, it has these 2 winged ends. I looked at the owner's manual, and according to the diagram, our angled blades do not go on the winged part of this, so keep that in mind. I'm gonna kind of hand tight everything. The business end of the blade will be going with the rotation of the flywheel, counterclockwise if you're looking at it in a similar fashion as I am right now. The washer will go on the back side of your blade, like that. And then you've got your screw and collar. Keep in mind I damaged this screw. I'm gonna have to use vice grips to tighten it. If you're in the same boat, it's probably a good time to go to the hardware store if you don't live in a small town where everything's closed on Sunday, and get a new bolt. Otherwise, you can just rock and roll with what you have. You'll just have a little bit of difficulty reinstalling it. And we got our straight blades. So your little spacer part is going to be facing out towards you on the straight blades. Washer still goes on the back, essentially like this. And here again, you want your blade going with the rotation of the machine. If you follow that little guideline, it's really hard to mess this up. Once again, I'm not using air tools. And I'm making sure they spin freely. So, if you'll notice, I've got these 2, they seated just fine, but these other 2 did not seat. And the reason for that is because my washer is binding with that spacer. So, be able to recognize that. Make sure your washer is not going to impede seating your fastener. I was actually able to salvage my fastener. This fastener I stripped actually worked out for me upon tightening, so cool. I don't know, sometimes you get lucky like that. I'm going to get my housing on. Essentially, all of this step is just the opposite of disassembly. I'm going to go ahead and get this into position. There's no alignment pins or anything like that, so you're going to have to just get a couple of your fasteners. Started there. I'll get one started on this side, and then everything should be pretty easy from that point on. I would recommend just kind of spinning the motor. I have not turned the ignition on, it's still off. Just making sure everything spins over. You haven't bound anything up. I'm just gonna go around and get everything started. Now remember, your discharge opening had its own special set of circumstances. So I'm gonna get a couple of these started. I'm running into some obstruction with my floor jack and the piece of wood I have. It would be a little bit easier to snug these up. Maybe 2 of these just to keep everything kind of together. And then I can get the jack out of the way. Killer. And I'm noticing a tendency for the bottom of the case to want to come towards me as I work. And that's just because I haven't tightened up the hardware. So be aware of that. It has not been an issue though getting things started. So I think I got one more. There we go. This one's a little hard to get to. I've got everything started, so it's a matter of going around, zipping everything tight. There are 6mm for our brush chute. Noticing it wants to tighten up this inner nut. I'm just making sure I got free motion of this. And that's good enough for me. Same thing. Just go around, tighten everything up. So now, let me get my brush hopper, line it up on the studs, like so, and then get my nuts started. Piece of cake. I'll just zip all these on. Finally, we're gonna have our brush chute. We have 3 nuts that are gonna secure this. Washer, nut. I'm only seeing one extra part. Looks like a spare washer has presented itself to me, but that could have been there from any number of projects, so I will deduct no points for that. Zipping. Voila! All right, clean the air filter out. The pre-filter that's on there made of foam. It actually caught a lot of the debris. I don't know, it had a small tear in it. Not sure if it's gonna hold up another year. But really, all I have left to do with a fresh oil change, fresh air filter change, or cleaning is test it out. Let's see how we did. Now, if you've watched the Shredfest video, towards the end, things get a little bit sketchy. The machine is not as eager to accept branches. So let's see how a fresh blade sharpening improves the machine, shall we? Well, gang, that was definitely worth the effort. The machine has like new performance, and for what amounted to about an hour of work at the 1 year mark, there really wasn't a whole lot of maintenance to get this machine running just as good as the day I bought it. So I'm going to finish shredding this pile of wood. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully this helps you tackle similar maintenance on your machine. And until next time, Mario, I'm out. Peace. Peace be with you.